Ford 4.2 liter V6 valve cover gasket replacement. Okay. This should cover 1997 through 1993, 2003, 4.2 liter on the F-150. Here's a Fill Pro kit for you. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and start on the easy side, and that would be the driver's side valve cover here. All right, on this side, first thing on each side, by the way, just blow compressed air, get all the nuggets of crud off of the valve cover. Otherwise, it might fall in when you pull it off. All right, anyway, moving on. The spark plug wires do have retainers that slide down on these studs. Mine are missing, but if yours aren't, go ahead and slide those off to access the stud bolt for removal. There might be one in the back as well there. The next thing you do have on the dipstick tube here, it is fastened on with an 8mm head fastener on the side of the block. Right there. You want to remove that. And the vent right here in the middle of the camera. Want to pop that out. And you should be able to get all the bolts out and pull the valve cover off. When removing the bolt that holds the dipstick tube on, I recommend a 6-point socket. That is an 8mm 6-point. I was using a 12-point and it started to round off the stud or bolt there. There we go. There's the bolt for the dipstick tube. It's got movement now. You should be able to get the valve cover out around it. However, at this point, we'll go ahead and remove this vent right here. Be able to pop up on it. Yeah, there we go. Get that out of the way. There we go. That'll hold it. So, I mean, at this point, I'm just going to go around with a deep 8mm head socket and loosen all the bolts by hand. I'm using a deep 8mm because there are some studs on here that you'll need a deep socket for. Goodness me. Once the valve cover bolts back out all the way and they're loose, they will sort of still retain in to the valve cover. They're not going to slide the bolts all the way out. Okay, that one's out all the way. You'll definitely need to break all these loose by hand first. They're pretty tight. All right, working in the back here, I've broken loose the final 5th bolt back here. Get my hand on it for you and show you. See, there's the socket. And I'll loosen that out by hand, and I'll be able to lift this up here. All right, with all the bolts loosened out, in theory now. Okay, yeah, let's see here. Oh, yeah. Okay. There it is, boys. The meat and the biscuits. Careful not to flip it over and drop the bolts down in the engine, but it's well maintained. At this point, what I'm going to recommend is carefully, with brake cleaner and a rag, clean off the mating surfaces all the way around where the gasket meets the cylinder head. Now, being a this push rod engine here, there's no mating surface where it contacts a timing cover or anything, so you don't need to put silicone down. So you just need to clean it up. And while I'm in here, just make sure the rocker arms aren't loose or anything. Worn out. Yeah, they're all good. No sludge or anything like that. All right, I'm gonna clean it up. All right, boys, I do have the valve cover set on its anus here. Okay, and only had one bolt fall out. It was the stud that goes all the way in the back. So just to let you know there. Anyway, at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the old gasket off. The new gaskets, I believe, are the same part number, so you can't mix them up. But if you're having issues installing the gasket, make sure that it's not different in your situation. Anyway, one more. There we go. At this point, you can go check through the inside of the channels here. Make sure there's no clogs or debris like this. Just clean it out all the way around. Sit the gasket on here in a manner which all the holes line up, and at that point you can start popping it into place. You'll feel it kind of notch in there. Had one more bolt fall out there while I was working on it, but anyways, you can see here there's a little bend in it which correlates with the valve cover there. Just like I said, everything lines up and has its home, and this is how it goes on here. The lower part goes right here. All right, go around one last time. Make sure that it's fully seated. Make sure you get any areas like that out. All right, I've got a rag that has some brake cleaner on it. I'm gonna go around and just clean the surface. All right, looking good in there. It's time to go back in with this now. Carefully and skillfully. Oh, double check once again that nothing's popped out. Okay. Let's sit it down and get the bolt holes somewhat lined up. Start threading the bolts in by hand. Apparently my kit didn't come with these bolt seals here. Inspect your bolt seals for the valve cover gasket. You will have to pull the bolts all the way out to inspect them, but there are seals on them. All of the bolts have been threaded in by hand several turns. I'm going to go around and just run them down near flush, and then I'm going to torque them by hand. I'm going to snug down the bolts in the middle first and then work my way outwards. Alright, last bolt here. Just get it hand tight about where it was before. If you want torque specs, let me know and I'll put them in the description below. There we go. Go ahead and get the dipstick tube bolt back on and the vent. There's a bolt for the dipstick tube here. Ooh, almost dropped the camera there. Pop. All right, looks like we're all good to go on this side. Moving on. All right, this side's going to be more of a challenge here because we have a few more things to take off. I do believe what I'm going to try to do here is get the ignition coil loose. There's an 8mm head bolt right there, and at the same spot on the other side, you'll need to reach back with a ratchet. And I'm going to leave the wires connected and set it aside as an assembly, just maybe bungee cord it up here just to get some clearance. And if you look on the back here, there's a connector right here that needs to come off for slack, and possibly that other wire right there might need to be disconnected. That piggybacks off of here. Other than that, it does appear that this breather hose is going to have to come off. It goes to the back and pops in, and in the same manner on the other valve cover there, just pop it out, and you may want to slide it off here as well and just pull it all the way off. And if it's the original hose, these are bad about collapsing, so you might want to replace it if you are in here anyway. Actually, I'm going to try to leave this connected for now and disconnect it if I have to. I'm going to pop this out so I can get a socket down in here on the ignition coil. Go ahead and do that now. Oh my goodness. Okay. Wow. Well, you get the gist of it. Get a socket on there and take that bolt out. One correction here, those are 7mm head bolts. So I am going to go in here with a stubby 7mm wrench and get these bolts off of here. There we go. Should be able to get it loose and then get it out by hand. And like I said, there's most likely going to be one on the back here, but we'll find out. There we go, I'm getting it out by hand. There we go. And yeah, there's another one on the back, but the breather hose that I talked about a second ago is in the way. So I'm going to pop that up out of the valve cover and slide it off the throttle area right there. I had to put my muscles into it, and this actually popped out of the valve cover where that breather goes, so I'm going to have to pop that back in, but as you can see, it's free, and pop it off here. Don't pry too hard on that sensor. There we go. It's coming off. Be mindful of how this hose is routed and put it in the same way. And pull it out. It's going to be fun, guys. Whew. Oh, okay. Now I can get back there again with my 7mm wrench and take the other ignition coil bolt out. Be mindful, you'll have that in the way a little bit. Okay, just need to find it with my hand. There it is. Break it loose. There we go. Get it loose and take it out by hand. It does appear there's a third bolt. See my finger wiggling? There's a bolt right there, and on the other end, down in here, right here. So there's a total of 3 bolts holding the coil down. Remove them all. There's a second bolt, one more left. There we go. Here's the third one. As you can see now, the coil is free. You can bungee cord it out of the way if you want to, and get access to the valve cover. I have chosen to disconnect this one connector right here, and then I was able to slide this all the way up here. Okay. Alright, now at this point it's the same as the other side. Just reach in there with an 8mm deep socket and break all the bolts loose that hold the valve cover on, and then pull it on out of there. Loosening the valve cover bolts, once again, just like the other side. There should be 5 of them. Another bolt, valve body, or valve cover bolt. Oh, that one spun on it a little. Oh, there we go. Take the ratchet off, leave the socket on, reach down in there and just turn the socket by hand. And 5. Break the bond of the gasket. There we go. Okay. Here's what I did. I moved the coil right here back down and put it under here temporarily just to get some clearance. And I grabbed this engine bracket here for the crane, and I pulled it and bent it over a little bit, and that gave me clearance to get in here. Alright, so same as the other side, I'm just going to clean up here, inspect the bolt seals, and go ahead and replace this. Wow, that is a worn out gasket. I don't even see it hardly. Yeah, oh wow. Yeah, barely even sealing anymore. Look at that, that gap there. You need to pop those little silver washer things on the stud bolts here through the gasket in this manner here. I hope I did that on the other side. See what I mean? There we go. See how it's kind of staying up there now? Get this grommet back in if it popped off. Okay, I've got the valve cover set up in there. A few of the bolts started on it. It was kind of a pain in the butt to get up in there. What I did is just held this stupid ignition coil out of the way. Okay. Then I was able to kind of maneuver it in there. And before you put it on, double check that no dirt and crap fell into the engine in there before you put the valve cover over it, because mine had some dirt that fell in. Alright boys, all 5 of the bolts are tight that are holding the valve cover on. So at this point I'm going to get this stupid ignition coil back on here. Okay. Once again, there are 1 and 2 and 3 bolts that hold the ignition coil on. Tighten them all the way down. I'm just feeling for the hole, and I'm going to stick it in. Get your mind out of the gutter. Alright, thread them in and tighten all 3 of the coil bolts. Alright, the coil, all 3 bolts are bolted down. Right now I'm making sure none of the plug wires popped off of it. Do you see this right here? Let me zoom in. This red vacuum hose here, you may have bumped this off by accident when you're pulling the valve cover out, so just double check that. If your truck's not running right when you're done, that might be why. Other than that, plug this back up here. Okay. Go back down here, make sure this single wire didn't pop off of the connector, and it did not. It's still hooked up. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and insert that breather hose. If you want to replace yours, here's a part number. Okay. This side, I'm going to go, feed in first. Okay, I'm going to reach back behind here on the bottom through here and pull it back the rest of the way, rotate it and line it up with the grommet on the valve cover. pop it down in the grommet, and it is in. Make sure it's flush. I'll come back up here and put this on here. Okay, just give it a tug. Make sure it's not coming off. Make sure it's not bound up on anything. Put your hand back here one more time. Make sure it didn't come off the grommet and it is still flush. And if you took this off here, put it back on. And make sure this green vacuum hose didn't pop off the EGR valve. Other than that, since I bent this bracket out of the way here for the engine crane, I'm going to push it back forward a bit. It does not take much, and that's easier than pulling the studs and stuff off the exhaust. Make sure none of the plug wires are contacting the EGR tube, or you're going to develop a misfire. Okay. That about does it here. I'm going to throw away my waste into the waste bin. And I'm going to run the engine for about 20 or 30 minutes. Might just go for a ride, you know. Come back and make sure it's not pouring oil out. You may have rolled a seal if it did. Pull everything back apart and double check yourself. Other than that, that concludes today's video on valve cover gasket replacement on my old pickup truck. Ford 4.2 liter V6. Have yourselves a fantastic day. Sure do hope this video helps.